this war could have gone so much differently if just a few things had happened had to happen in a different way. The troops arriving from Jackson had come in earlier. The reinforcements being stopped on the river that had come through but had not been turned back. They had not made it. It was very different if that had changed. No, we haven't even reached marker 1.
These are all just memorials along the way. Marker
right.
Up in here.
Right. Union soldiers on this side. Confederate soldiers are where the standing monument is, and that's red signs. We are standing in front of Illinois' monument to their troops that were fought and lost during the war. It is pretty impressive. Wow.
Referred to as abatis. It was the 19th century equivalent of modern-day barbed wire. In addition to the abattis, the Confederates had excavated large pits at the bottom of which they placed sharpened bamboo and cane and covered those pits with mats of dried grass. Thanks to these obstructions, the Union advance was thwarted long before it ever reached its objective, this fort.
These trenches are hand dug by troops that were trying to avoid being fired upon by the Confederates on the far ridge. Would have had to be able to move supplies and place to sleep, and they were avoiding going up high enough that could be fired on by sharpshooters from that far ridge. Impressive, especially that some of these they've been able to maintain the trenching that was there before. Well, this is the redoubt or earthen fort wall to protect against the Union troops by the Confederates. You see, it's kind of an impressive line. The railroad's still in the same place. But the troops will be behind here. It's the Texas Memorial, Confederates, and they had different levels. Cannon was set up here, and we were trying to repel the Union forces. The park is very large. I can't imagine coming up this hill through that valley under a volley of fire to try to get up here and find yourself stopped and having to retreat back with the same fire at you. The wind is kind of hard right now, but this is actually a fort, an earthen fort set up to protect this position. And all the trees in the far distance were planted later. They didn't exist then. This was all clear cut at that time. And the battle would have been out in the open, except for places where the earth had been dug into trenches. So we see a portion of what may have been a trench along here. They're in front of the fort for men to lay on and fire over the top of the edge. And anyone approaching from below, along with cannons that would sit up here and fire in the distance. All along the area, along the road to the side, is the Alabama divisions that were trying to defend the city from the Union. Now we're from the Union side looking back at that fort. Imagine having to cross this center section and deal with gunfire coming down on you and cannon fire. They had the replay the information about how this was fought, and the Union soldiers would dig trenches and at angles, and you can see how the hillside's been cut, and at the angles they would place they would be able to move themselves closer to that fort to be able to fire at them. When they finally were at their last point, they could actually yell back and forth at each other. They were so close.
The United States Navy Monument is the tallest monument in the park, towering 202 feet high, and was dedicated in October 1917 during the National Peace Jubilee. Patterned after the Washington Monument, the Navy Monument is adorned at its base by 4 heroic-sized statues of prominent naval officers who participated in the Vicksburg campaigns of 1862 and 1863. Those men were David Dixon Porter, David Glasgow Farragut, Andrew Hull Foote, and Charles Henry Davis. This imposing monument is a fitting tribute to the men of the United States Navy who played such a crucial role in the Vicksburg campaign. Just how crucial? On July 4th, 1863, as Grant rode in to the city of Vicksburg at the head of his victorious Union Army and rode down to the Warren County Courthouse to watch as the stars and bars of the Confederacy were lowered to be replaced by the stars and stripes, he then rode down to the city's waterfront to personally thank and congratulate Admiral David Dixon Porter for the services rendered by the United States Navy, and Grant would be the first to admit he could not have taken Vicksburg without the Navy's assistance.
USS Cairo Museum. It was sunk south of here in the river. At that time the Mississippi came closer to this area than it is now. But that's impressive. Steel drum boilers. It's the actual compression arm that would move the paddle wheel, which is enclosed inside the ship to conceal it and to protect it from being fired upon. Amazing. The sides are thick iron plate, protect against enemy fire bouncing off, and it seemed to work. There's only a few places you can see dents, but obviously the ship was sunk. But you can see dings and dents in the metal where cannons hit and bounced off. There are quite a few of them. I don't know if they're showing up in the video, but Look down the side, you can see the dings where it was hit several times. They were just bounced and reflected over the top, or bounced back into the water. The stern of the ship and the two rudders to guide it. The paddle wheel was basically buried inside the ship to hide it, protect it. The rudders.
Maybe if fired just right, they could cut the steering cables and disable the gunboat where it couldn't turn.
Oh wow. Well, that was a poor design. Yeah. I'm sure the Confederates knew how it was constructed to a certain degree. And certainly they could have found out from the ones they'd already sunk.